Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. So hopefully I'm going to be joined by, who have we got? Chris Southern from Menshed Cymru. Phil Johnson from the US of A. Good morning or evening, Phil. Trevor from New Zealand.
Good morning, and how are you
Morning.
all?
And me from Denmark.
Hi, me.
Hello.
Well, it's definitely morning here in the U.S., but that's okay. I'm looking forward to joining you all. I think this should be a good session.
Good. Yes. Well, I think we are live. I'm looking for. I don't think Barry's been able to join us. So let me make some introductions. And then I'll hand over to each of you to introduce yourselves as well. So we've got Chris Southern. Give us a wave, Chris. Chris works with me in Wales. Phil Johnson, USA. In Florida?
No.
Yep.
I'm in Minnesota.
Minnesota, sorry. Me in Denmark.
Yes,
and
I'm
Trevor
in Copenhagen.
And Trevor in New Zealand, Christchurch.
Yep. Hi there, people.
Hey,
there we are.
Hi, me.
Phil, can I pick on you first to sort of just give a brief introduction to yourself?
Oh, I'd be happy to. I'm Phil Johnson. I'm one of the managing directors of United States Menshed Association. We've been going about 5 years now, and like everyone else, COVID didn't help our organizing efforts too much the last year and a half, but we're doing okay. I am here in Minnesota. We have 5 Mensheds that are active here in Minnesota, and we just received a grant from the National Institutes of Health to help have more Mensheds join us with an emphasis on rural Minnesota, rural U.S. So we're actually doing a joint presentation with Eve Byrne of the Irish Mensheds. We'll be doing that on the 21st to a very large audience from the Minnesota Health and the Minnesota Agriculture Department. So things are moving here in the U.S. just a little slow, and it's so nice to meet some of the other folks because in Iceland and Denmark, I understand your organizations are just kind of getting started as well. So I'm anxious to hear about you guys.
Great. Thanks for that, Phil. I've got lots of questions to come back to you at, but let's move over to Trevor in New Zealand.
Yep. Hi there, folk. We've been established now for a good number of years in New Zealand. In fact, it started for me about 13 years ago. I'm actually the chairman of New Zealand Menshed, and I've been in that post for a couple of years now, 2 or 3 years, and I've been on the executive for a good number of years now. We're purely a voluntary organisation. There's no paid workers in our organisation at all. It's all voluntary people just going through, and every shed is run as an independent unit, although they are members of New Zealand Menshed. There's 146, I think it is, sheds in New Zealand at the present time, of which there are 107 sheds that are members of New Zealand Menshed. The ones that aren't full members at the moment are what we call complementary hosting, and they are in the initial stage of being set up, or they haven't yet furnished their documents to be able to join New Zealand Menshed. And we just require sheds to have a legal identity, and we require them to clearly illustrate that they're there for men's health and well-being, and then they can join New Zealand Menshed. Our job at New Zealand Menshed is to promote sheds as much as we can throughout the country, and to also arrange benefits for sheds. And we have group insurance policies running. We have different corporates who have been generous enough to be able to give us products that we can then move on to sheds. For instance, Cabot's as a varnishing and application product, and they give to every shed in New Zealand 10 litres free, which is around about $500. So our sheds are funded by funding that is applied for. There is no government funding. There is no council fundings. It is funded by either application to funders, like the Lotteries Commission and all these types of things, or they raise money through doing projects. And most of the projects, then there's a donation that would be handed back to the shed after they've completed a project as a gift to the shed, and that's how they're funded. So we're a shoestring organisation, you could say. We don't, as I say, it's not a big money thing. It's about sheds doing their thing, and every shed is slightly different, and they range in size from 3 metres by 3 metres to 300 to 400 square metres in size. They all start basically with a wood workshop, and then they stretch out into metal workshops and electronics and all manner of things. So that's basically in a nutshell. I also look after one of the regions. We have 6 regions in New Zealand. Top of the North Island, the middle of the North Island, the south of the North Island, and then we have myself. I look after the top half of the South Island, and another rep looks after the bottom half of the South Island. So our job as a rep is to, in fact, go out to communities and promote. Sheds, we don't go into the community to start a shed. We wait for a community to invite us to come and talk to them about men's sheds. And that's how it's done. It's done by people seeing the benefits of it, by hearing about it, by visiting our website, and because it's a small country, it's very easy to get the word from one end of the country to the other. So we go and visit the sheds, and then once we've visited a community who are looking to start a shed, then we spend time to make sure that they can get off the ground. So that's basically in a nutshell of where we are. And my position is, as I say, it's all purely voluntary. We give up our time, and I also attend the shed every Tuesday, which I was there this morning. And out in the shed I'm actually involved in. I'm a life member at one shed, and I go to another shed at the moment because it's close to home. And they operate on 3 mornings a week. So
excellent. Thanks, Trevor. Me, I know you wanted to go last, so I'll say a little bit about men. Are you okay to go now, Me?
I'm totally okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about sheds in Denmark. I have no idea what's going on, so please let us know.
Yeah. Thank you for the invite, and so nice to see you all. In Denmark, for the first, we name our shed. The translations part is men's meeting place. In Danish, it's mænds mødesteder, and that is because we not only do craft work. So we thought that if we call it men's meeting place, it will have another sound for those who want to do something else. And to give you an overview of where we are in Denmark, we started up in 2015, and now we have around 30 men's sheds. And they are based in the different kinds of municipality. In Denmark, we have 98 municipality, and 30 of them has now a men's shed. They are very different because they do very different stuff or activities in their men's shed. The thing they all do is actually go out in the nature. And during COVID, it has been a very big thing for them to go out in the nature. They go out for walks. We have beautiful nature, we have a lot of water in Denmark as well, so we have a lot of coastline. So therefore, to go out in the nature has been very big during COVID, and is still going on. And also we have a lot of. They also wanted really to. They are truly inspired by all your men's shed around the world to do craft work. So a lot of them want to do craft work, and not all have the facilities to do it because, as you also said from Trevor from New Zealand, that it's very different how the space is for the men's shed. Not all men's shed in Denmark have their own place, and that is for us the biggest challenge to find a place for them to be. The way we start up a men's shed in Denmark is that we contact the different municipality and talk to them about the benefits of opening up a men's shed and provide the men with a space where they can be. And this, of course, is different between if it's a big city or a small city community, what is possible for them. But what can I say? For us, at the moment, we for the last 3 years we haven't had any money to help start up men's shed. So the only help we have can give them is a hotline to me. So if they want to discuss anything during around their men's shed, they can call me. But now we have for the next 3 years a project that is founded by a private foundation that is. They have this purpose that we wanted to see if we can find a model to put to engage more vulnerable men to join a men's shed because we think there is a huge resource in a men's shed to invite men who is suffering from depression, from stress, in between works. The men that we don't see in the men's shed at the moment. So for the next 3 years, we will be working on how to invite and include men's shed. And also we has in Denmark we are, and I'm proud to say it, very privileged. We have a lot. We as a citizen we have been giving a lot from the community. Therefore, we are not maybe so good at using our local community to help us. So we want to try to see how can we help the men be more outspoken to the local society and ask for help, because we can see around the world that is a really good thing to have into your men's shed. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you as how you're doing around, and of course, are very open to a lot of questions.
Thank you, Mia. And yeah, just to remind our viewers who are watching, I think through Facebook and YouTube, I think they can type in a question and they will magically appear, and we'll try and answer them if we can. So I'm Robert. I'm project manager at Menshed Cymru in Wales in the United Kingdom. Chris, and I'm glad to say Simon has joined us as well. They work with me. Similar to you guys, and as Trevor was saying there, we started up with men's sheds in Wales in about 2013, and we are there to advise groups who are interested in finding out more about men's sheds and how they set one up. And also we do a lot of networking now that there are more sheds. There are 60, I think we're up to 68 in Wales currently. And we like to put sheds in touch with each other and introduce, so guys can see what the others are doing. Chris actually covers South Wales and Simon North Wales, and I think the sort of split of sheds, we're probably about 2/3 in South Wales and 1/3 in North Wales. So I'm going to hand over to Chris, who's going to tell you a little bit about his role and sheds in South Wales. Chris?
I'm not sure if it was Mike that was making some noise, but I apologise if it was. Hi, morning everyone. Yeah, I cover South Wales. Now I have been working South East Wales. We had another project officer developing South West Wales, and we got Simon in the north. He'll tell you more about the north in a while. At the moment it's down to the two of us, so I'm covering the whole of South Wales. I can tell you, because we've been doing a bit of work coming out of lockdown, just trying to track down which sheds are still going, where they all are, and we're also updating our website. So I've got some of those figures. I make it 66 that are happening in Wales at the moment, that we're counting as active, which is sort of 22 in the north and 53 in the south. So pretty much as you say there, Rob. One of the things I wanted to draw attention to was that we've actually got 37 sort of interested and inquiring that we've generated in the last 12 months. So it's clearly been a really difficult year or so, and we've had lots of sheds that have been shut down for quite a long time. It's been challenging, but it's interesting to see we have 37, potentials are waiting in the wings to get going. I think one of the things that we can see straight away is a little bit different happening in Wales, and it's hard to see from working in Wales what's distinctive about a Welsh shed thing. But one of the things is clearly there's 3 of us here this morning that are all paid to be here, and we're employed to support sheds across Wales, which I think has been a really useful thing. I think it's really helped. We can devote a lot of time, and we've worked up quite a lot of sheds, and I think that's been successful. The downside is, of course, we had 2 rounds of big lottery funding. That was great for 6 years. We're in a 12-month funding cycle now. But of course, we're in that cycle of trying to find funding to keep the whole thing continuing. So, I know this isn't the opportunity to pitch, but, that's a downside of it. We've got to keep working at it. I spend a lot of time working with community groups and support organizations, as well as with individuals and sort of small groups, local men directly. And I would say, again, that was one of the things that I suspect might be distinctive. And I'm also really interested to hear what other people are going to say about around the world. But I think one of the things that I observe of the Welsh sheds is a lot of them are embedded into larger community organizations. They don't have their own space. They either borrow, share, sometimes rent a little bit of space within another community organization. So they're sort of embedded in. And I think that's something that we've been working to support, which means that we've managed to keep away from too much emphasis on income generation, making stuff to sell, which I know some groups get involved with. Again, everything I say about a Welsh shed, this might be true, but there will be another shed that is very focused on income generation. Mm-hmm. So, I think generally around the world, there seems to be more that sort of unites us than divides. I don't mean divide us, but makes us distinctive. Anyway, that's what I spend a lot of time doing, working with other organizations and saying, how can we work together to support a group of getting going here? And we've got lots of different models of partnerships working around Wales. I'm conscious there's 3 of us from Wales, so I'm going to sort of knock it on the head there. I'm very happy to have lots of questions, but we want to let Simon and Rob talk as well, but we're going to end up taking up the whole show if we all take 5-7 minutes. And I know once Simon gets going, Simon, do you want to jump in there?
Go on, Simon.
And you're on mute too.
Like going to add to those famous words. You're on mute.
Yeah, no. I didn't mute myself. I was muted. Somebody muted me when I wasn't looking. Right. So as Robert said, we've been doing this since 2013, and unlike a lot of other organizations, we had people on the ground. And so it was expected that a lot of it was, although we did have people coming to us, and there's a kind of osmosis to sheds happening. So John Evoy, who used to be the CEO of the Irish Men's Sheds, used to liken it to dominoes. Once you've got a certain amount of groups going, there's a domino effect in your communities, and other sheds evolve. But in the early days, it was described as being a bit like John the Baptist going out into the wilderness. And there were times when I did turn up with just a lot of leaflets and bits of paper and found the local community people and, walked in through their door with a big smile on my face saying, you don't know it yet, but you need a men's shed in your community. And I think, we've been lucky to be able to do that and build relationship with all our sheds. I'm in North Wales, and it's only 20% of the population of Wales. We don't have large cities or large areas of industrialization. So what we have is small chains of towns across the North Coast. Not too far apart. So I think for me that, my furthest shed is only about 2 hours away. So they've all at some point been able to connect with each other. And whilst that's not a regular thing, it does help to their sense of belonging. So our philosophy is, if you belong to your local shed, then you belong to your community, then you belong to your cluster of sheds as well. And that reinforces the sense of, this is part of your world. So, we've been very, very lucky to have the unique ability over the last 6-7 years to have people going out and promoting men's sheds. We made a film in 2017. We've got groups who've made their own films and put them out on YouTube, and that's been massively helpful to us. But we've also had to, as everybody seems to say, engage with the fact that everything that we have promoted and supported over the last sort of 18 months has been the thing that we're not allowed to do. And so what we really, really need to do is build the confidence and address the anxieties that the guys who were in vulnerable situations in the first place are having to encounter now. How about that?
Thanks, Simon. Phil, I have a question for you. I think USA, you must be the biggest country here, representing the biggest country here. What are the numbers of sheds? I know you mentioned some numbers earlier. I didn't catch whether that was Minnesota specifically or USA.
Yes. There are 19 active sheds, and we have several, and I know people use different have different terms, but basically we've got another 5 or more in development as we're coming out of COVID. And I'm really interested in hearing about the outreach other countries are doing. And that's our number one priority or goal for U.S. Men's Shed is to create awareness, more awareness of men's sheds at different levels. Here in Minnesota, we happen to have 5, but I guess I feel very akin to the regional guys in Wales. So think of Minnesota as a region. So I do drive around and meet with the potential shed leaders and help them get started. And that seems to be a very successful formula. We are going to be reaching out into more of rural Minnesota. Now, Minnesota has a population the same size as Ireland's, 5.3 million people. Of course, Ireland has hundreds of sheds and Minnesota has just 5. But that's the sort of national potential we see here. There's 330 million people in the U.S. and certainly half of those being men. They all need a men's shed. So
definitely.
We're doing what we can to promote, but it's been slow. We do not have any funding at the national level. We've been looking into finding partners and sponsors and a patron or two who might be able to help us. So we're an all volunteer board as well. We have 5 board members in Florida, in Minnesota, in Hawaii, and actually a board member up in Canada.
Wow.
So we we've never met each other. And we've been at this for 5 years. So that's the sort of challenge for us is get things going. But certainly we're finding, when we have a chance to explain or promote it to people, people get it right away. And we, like other Western cultures, have vulnerable populations of men and others who could really help their health and well-being by being in a shed. So,
sure, absolutely. And is it, you do call them sheds, not dens, or any other names?
No, we're all men's sheds. So if anybody is interested, on our national website, which is usmensheds.org, we have a page with all the sheds, all their locations, and you can kind of see how we're spread out. And we have a Google map of some sort, but you've got to make it pretty wide because of Hawaii in there. It's a pretty large map.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's I'm just fascinated by what you're doing in other countries, and so many elements of what you've spoken about as challenges or methods, we want to learn more about as well, because we're just getting started.
Yeah, similar challenges, but I think yours is what, 100 million times bigger. So tell us a little bit about Denmark. I'm embarrassed to say I know very little about Denmark, but perhaps a similar size to Wales.
We are 5 million people.
A little bit bigger, yeah.
A little bit bigger, yeah. What do you want to know?
And big cities, rural, and where are the sheds at the moment?
The best functional Menshed in Denmark is actually at the countryside. Because there is, it's easier to because there is not so many activities to go to in the in the smaller community. So therefore, it's easier for us to start up there, and there is there's a bigger need for it out there compared to the big cities. I'm actually at the moment sitting in Copenhagen, where we have our office, and that is actually one of the places where it has been most difficult for us to start up a Menshed, because you don't talk to your neighbor the same way you talk to your neighbor out in the country. So to give the speak out mouth to mouth is not as easy as it is out in the countryside. But we have had compared to many of you, have an easier COVID, because our government has been very good at the beginnings to make some restriction that has made us not being so isolated as I could assume and have heard that you have been. So therefore we actually have been able to see each other, and as I talked about the men getting out in the nature, I make a phone call to all our men's yet to hear how many of the 30 sheds there is going to open up again, and it's all of them. None of them has closed for good. They have been closed for period, but they have been together, and they have met outside, because it has been possible for us in Denmark to meet up outside in a group of 10 when it was in the minimum. So therefore they have been out walking, and so in that way we are functioning very good. Our goal for Denmark is hopefully to open up a Menshed in every municipality in Denmark. That is a long term. So if we can double up our sheds, we will be very happy, and we think there is a possibility for it, actually, because the COVID has brought us that being together, being shoulder to shoulder, and missing out of the community shows really the potential of Menshed, and that is also why we have been questioning. A lot of people have reached out to us and said that they would like to start up.
That's what we found, as Chris was saying there. The inquiries we've had over the last year, and particularly towards the end of lockdown, people are thinking about how they're going to come out and be together. I mean, I've certainly noticed that, as you were saying there, sheds have just tentatively started to come back in Wales, and it's been those with the outdoor spaces that have been able to meet first. You know, those with allotments. You know, I know up on Holyhead they have allotment space, so they've met outdoors. Yes. Trevor, what's the picture like in New Zealand? I mean, you're an island. You've been able to close down the borders. A shed's open. Did they close down for COVID?
We're in a very unique position because we are a set of islands, and when COVID hit, we were closed down for only 6 weeks, and it was reopened again. And gradually, there's 4 levels of closure. We're on level 1 at the moment. It means we just live a normal life, and everything's just back in New Zealand here is absolutely normal. You wouldn't think the COVID thing's been going on.
Wow.
They've just undone a bubble with Rarotonga, some islands that are north of us, and with Australia. But Australia has just got the Indian strain of COVID, and they've just closed the borders again with Australia. You can only come from Australia, from South Australia or Victoria or ACT and Tasmania. The other states in Australia, they've got the COVID thing, so we've shut them out of New Zealand, so we don't allow any of them to come. Anybody who comes to New Zealand, and there are a number of people who are still coming to New Zealand, they go into quarantine for 15 days, and they have to pay for that quarantining. So, and New Zealand is returning. Under the bubble, we don't have to go into COVID quarantining, but you're asked to be careful when you come back. If you went over to Australia or over to the islands, you would have to be careful when you came back. But the biggest thing for us about the COVID thing was that even though we were only shut down for a short time, it did have a marked effect on some of the older people within the community. And it did take some sheds a wee while to get back up and going again. It has done one big thing for us. It means that some sheds that had perhaps some very loose arrangements happening within their shed, they could revisit it and restart. And it gave them the opportunity to tighten up on health and safety within the shed. And because of the COVID thing, we have to, log in every day we go, and we have to disinfect our hands and that before we go into the shed and things like that. We still do that, but it did give sheds a chance to restart. So it's been, in a way, it's been, for us, it has been very, very mild. Our son lives in Denmark, so I'm very, very pleased that there's a Danish person on here tonight. Our son lives in Gilleleje, up the top end of the island there. And so I've talked to him numerous times about mensheds, but he doesn't see that the menshed in Denmark is the same as what we have here. And he's been to our mensheds many, many times with me.
So what's it's a difficult question to answer this when I shouldn't really ask, but what's a sort of typical shed in New Zealand? Are they woodwork based? Are they based rurally in the cities? Are they more a social shed?
Well, all sheds in New Zealand start with a shed. So they start with a shed, and the most easiest one to set up is a wood-based shed. Then they stretch into a metal department, which is a wee bit more difficult to set up, and then they go into electronics and things. But the social side of it is very, very important, and that's when morning teas go for, instead of 10 minutes and quarter of an hour, it goes for an hour. People are more interested in having a chat to one another and getting on with one another. Most of the sheds are scattered. I look after Canterbury region, which is about 450 kilometres long and about 380 kilometres wide. Canterbury Westland, and also look after the Nelson area. And they are in Canterbury. There are 30 sheds in Canterbury, of which we have a hub meeting every 4 months. We get together as a group of sheds, and a number of sheds send representatives to the meeting, and we host that around the region. So it's never ever in one shed. It could be down at Cymru, which is 200 kilometres south of us. We had one just in April that was up in Cheviot, which was an hour and a half, 2 hours drive north. And people come from one end of it to the other for that particular day, and where we get 70 or 80 people to those meetings. And it's a show and tell type thing, and it's a sharing. Mensheds for New Zealand are about sharing skills, about sharing whatever your interests are or whatever. And the social side of it, morning tea time, is very, very important. That is there. An example of that is a chap who's in his 83. He's 83. He gets on his bike and bikes from his home to go to the bus, which is 1.5 kilometres away. He gets on a bus with his bike, and they drop him down close to the shed I go to. He hops off the bus. He gets on his bike and bikes another 2 kilometres to the shed. Now, he's 83. He very rarely does he miss a day, and he comes primarily for morning tea. He makes the morning tea, tidies up, and has a whale of a time. And then just after morning tea, he'll come around and say goodbye to everybody, and you'll see him back again same time next Tuesday doing exactly the same. Now, there's a lot of people who come to sheds for that reason. It's about social interaction. It's about connection. It's about having a purpose in life. And that's what our sheds are all, the philosophy of men sheds in New Zealand. It's about purpose in life. It's about assisting people to break out of the cycle of loneliness. And another example of that is I go out and I talk to a lot of people, and they said, "Oh, look, why do I go to a men shed? I've got a shed at home." And I said, "Well, okay, great. How many people do you talk to in a day?" And they said, "Oh, I've got my partner, my wife. I talk to her when I have breakfast, and I go out of the shed and I pot around, and she calls me out for a cup of tea, and I go back inside, and she come out for lunch and all the rest of it." I said, "How many people did you speak to, during a normal day?" He says, "Oh, I speak to my wife." I said, "Well, that's the reason why men sheds are there. It is to bring you out of just being able to talk to your wife on a day-to-day. It's about the wider issues that are around that you could be talking to your wife about. Oh, what happened down at the shed? And there's a new set of conversations that are happening within the home. So it's about breaking down some social isolations. One of the biggest things is when a person passes on, their partner passes on, and they're left and they've got nothing.
Yeah.
That's one of the saddest things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree entirely. That the social side, the talking. I think we always say, what you need to start a shed is a kettle, tea, and milk.
Absolutely.
Jump in there, Rob.
Yeah. Go on, jump in, Chris.
I just wanted to say you just reminded me of a group that I helped get going here in South Wales. We tried several times to get a sort of allotment gardening group together, and it just didn't fly. Sometimes you start something and you keep inviting people, and occasionally blokes would turn up and say, "Oh, I really want to woodwork. I'm looking to do woodwork." And I don't know what it is about but that's not what they wanted. And eventually we did. We have managed to find a woodwork room that we could borrow for a couple of sessions a week along another organisation. And I just thought it was funny listening to what you were saying there, because we actually moved them in. We got a nice little group going. They're still going now, and it's great. But actually, they didn't do a tap of woodwork. They for weeks and weeks, we just met up in the workshop and we sat and we drank tea. It was just like being in the allotment group. In fact, it's just that they really wanted to do it in a woodwork room, So we didn't actually get any work done for ages. I mean, they do now do small amounts of work. It's a borrowed space, so they can't store anything there, so they can't make anything very big. But that social moment is absolutely really what it's about. They like to get there and they like to push pieces of paper around and talk about what they're going to do and have a cup of tea and talk. We are Phil.
Jump in, Phil. Phil. Are you muted?
Oh,
muted, Phil?
You muted. Somebody
We can hear
muted.
you.
Let's see.
Yeah, you're okay. We can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Hear you now.
Great. It's interesting. Certainly, our goal is more social oriented. Now, in the U.S., we have, I'd say, about a quarter of our sheds at most are wood shop sort of sheds. The others are sponsored sheds, similar to others of you have spoken about. And it was for a number of reasons. I think what we found was that it's easier to get a shed started if it's sponsored, or I think in Australia it's called auspiced. But ours are sponsored. So, for instance, in the first shed here in mainland U.S., we was in Hopkins, Minnesota, and they went in and talked to the social director at a community center, and she said, "Oh, great, we'll add it as an activity." So their first meeting was within 3 weeks of talking to the activity director. And as they talked about, not everybody wanted to do a wood shop. And many of the guys said, well, that might, liability is big here in the U.S. and said, that doesn't sound like, something we want to step into. So they became a community service shed. So about a third of their meetings are doing community service projects. Another third is going out and visiting places locally, places of interest. It might be a museum. It might be doing work. We have some sheds that have adopted parks, for instance. So once a month, they just get up together as a group and walk around and chat with each other. And these groups tend to meet once a week. And the third thing these sheds do is either have speakers come in, like health speakers, or they do their own presentation. So recently at one shed, they had a fellow member talk about recumbent bicycles. And another guy talked about his time in the military. He was a safety officer on a nuclear submarine. Other guys talk about hobbies. But all the members, like all the rest in the world, I think, these are older guys with lots of life experiences, and everybody has something of interest to others. So that seems to be our focus. And like we've spoken of earlier here, so reducing isolation and just providing a way for guys to see people other than maybe their family or partner and do other things. So that's kind of our focus here for now.
Me, jump in.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to talk a little bit about health, because for us, I'm in this NGO association where we work with men's health as our primary goal. And when we wanted to start up men's meeting places, Menshed, our primary goal was how can we work with men's health in another setting than you do as in a normal health communities. And we have just the experience we have had with Menshed is that because Menshed has a non-alcohol politic, which is super important for the whole meaning of Menshed, and we have so many very, very good response for the men that because it's non-alcohol, they wanted to join, and we have had some good experience with men who suffered from alcoholism, who has come out of treatment and joined a men's meeting place and stayed clean, because they come into this clean environment where we don't talk about alcoholism, but where it's just that is just how it is, because every man have to be able to join a meeting place regardless of they are drinking or not. But here is a free environment. For us, the purpose of contacting municipalities is that in Denmark, the municipality is providing the society with health activities, and we wanted to see if they could work together with a men's meeting place. And the experience that we have had with that is that, for example, we have a very large, for us, a large men's shed in southern Denmark, where there is about 100 men, and they have now had 2 stop smoking courses, where they have joined 16 or up to 16 men, and the rate of them quitting the cigarettes are very high, and they the way you measure that is you look at them a year after and see are they still not smoking, and they have one of the highest rate of not smoking compared to the municipality's activities, because they are together and they can motivate each other of stop smoking, and so I think that is a very, very good experience we have, where the municipality also can see a benefit out of it, because the Menshed is having the setting. They don't have to find the men to the stop causing. They are asking for it themselves. They only have to come with a person who makes the course and then leave again. So they have this very, very benefit for them. So our goal is that we can hope that we can have more of these experience, and at the moment is very very happy with that kind, because that is important for us, as well as, which is a big topic in Denmark, as you also said, several of you, loneliness, especially around elderly men. So a lot of our municipality is working with that, and they also can see a huge benefit of working together with a Menshed. Yes, and a last stuff is that we have at the moment have a new shed coming into our network, which started up in cancer rehabilitation center, where they wanted to have some kind of group for the men, and they were inspired by the Menshed. So they have opened up a Menshed next to the rehabilitation center, where the men who either have cancer or had cancer is joining up together, and they do a different kind of activities. And now the last thing I heard was that they want to invite, and am I saying it right, relatives of patient who has cancer, yeah, to join together and to see if the concept of Menshed can be helpful for them to have some kind of community around in this difficult time of period. Yeah, so we're looking forward to see if more of those kind can come in and join.
Yeah, brill. I think in Australia they use the term health by stealth. You know, you go to a shed for fun and take part, but inevitably, you know, the health and well-being benefits are massive. Simon, I don't know whether you want to say anything about that. And a question popped up on the screen, but now it's disappeared.
Yeah, I'll come back. There is a question. Yeah, we've had a lot of information from pain relief clinics to say that they've noticed that when their clients or have been involved in a Menshed and they're undergoing some kind of therapy, for whatever reason, it keeps popping up that their attendance at their Menshed kind of takes their mind off things. And, you know, I've been asked to do presentations for hospitals, not quite understanding why they wanted me to go there, but they picked up on the fact that this is all about a sort of an internal and a mental well-being. And I think it leads into the whole reason of why Mensheds are needed in the first place, which is there is some kind of disconnect initially amongst older men, that we also see amongst veterans, people who've served in the forces. So we've just have a veteran shed opening not far from myself. But it's become an issue that before it was sort of eclipsed by the COVID pandemic, was one of the biggest issues that we were looking at, was this disconnect between men of all ages. And I'd be quite interested to know from my colleagues across the world about whether they have an age limitation to their sheds, because I remember very early on in Wales, the decision was that they wouldn't have a cutoff for age, that you could go along to your Menshed if you were 18 and above. And I think that in some cases there were, I'm not sure if England had a sort of limit of 50, 55 plus, but certainly in Wales, the decision was made that, 18, you're technically an adult, and, you know, you should be seen to, if you wanted to attend. They didn't expect to have many people attending, but, you know, we do have guys in their who are 19 or 20, not many, but the general philosophy is that they can learn from the older guys, life skills, but also that it's about this kind of putting them on the right path and where they feel their place is in society with all the changes. And there's a historical link that goes back to people feeling marginalized because of what their careers or their life experiences were. So, you know, we know that the idea of sharing experiences and sharing information and just, you know, chewing the fat is what men's sheds do best.
Yeah. Any Trevor, any sort of restrictions on ages?
I'll just come on to that because this is actually an interesting thing. We don't have an age restriction on our sheds at all. And there are many, many programs running throughout the country from different sheds. They take on different projects within the community. And some of them are mentoring students from like their high school age students who are 16-year-olds who are having trouble. Some sheds do mentoring work with those schools. We also run holiday programs for younger children. They might be from 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. In the school holidays, we run programs in the sheds for them. We encourage father and son. We encourage father and daughter. A number of sheds have women that attend to them. Not the men agree to have the woman in the shed, but normally the women come on a separate time, a different time slot. So there are a few of the men who will be the mentors for the women in the shed, so then they can carry on and do whatever they want to do as well. So the age group, many of the age group is more of the older people. They're in probably their 60s going on. But there are a large number of like mid-30s who are wanting to do things and wanting to be part of something that isn't necessarily a sports club or going to the pub or whatever it happens to be. So there's a huge range of people there who are attending sheds. There's something like, I think it is 4,700 sheddies. We call them sheddies here in New Zealand, who attend sheds. So, you know, the number's growing. And every year there's about another 6 sheds come on tap from somewhere around the country. But age is not a barrier. And that's the thing that we came to grips with very early on. If you have an age group that you've got to be retired, and we retire at 65 in New Zealand, if you have an age group that you've got to be retired to be able to become a sheddy in the local shed, you are denying so much. There's a huge resource that is being denied to the community, and that's where we see our sheds as being a resource for the community. And many sheds have community gardens connected to them, and activities, you know, what range of activities that the men can be involved in.
Cool. Phil and me, both, you know, new to shedding, or your countries are relatively new. Any thoughts on the ages, or?
I can, we also don't have, we also only have from 18 and up, and we at the moment now only see men in the 60s and up. But actually, we, and of course, now for the next 3 years, we are working on new men coming in. And one of the group that is not a vulnerable group, but which is a new group, is that we in Denmark, from around August 2022, will have a new law that says that fathers have to take 2 months of maternity leave. And if they don't take it, it will be taken away from the joint maternity leave, and that we will say approximately 40 to 50,000 men will then have to take maternity leave, and they have to go somewhere with their children and do something, because we can't have them walking around doing nothing. And therefore, I think there is a potential that they can come and join a men's shed. If it's only for some kind of time, for those 2 months, it could still be a nice environment to go into, and maybe at a later point in life they can join back. But it's a way of introducing men's shed, I think. So I hopefully we will see some new. Yeah.
I can say that for here in the U.S., we've certainly talked about this a lot. We don't have any age restrictions, but we do find, except for a very few sheds, our members are retired. Typically, the youngest would be in their 50s, but mainly our members are 60s, 70s, and up. But we talked about it, and I know in the Hawaii, Honolulu Menshed, they do have some folks of younger ages. One thing we do try to do in the U.S. is encourage sheds to do cross-generation activities. And some of the sheds have been very successful at reaching out and doing things with local schools or doing activities at their local health club, things like that. So, but we do see that, you know, that we would have people at different ages. It's just right now we don't have that. We're also prepared to accept, and we do have a couple of women members in our sheds. But again, that is rare, and but we make sure we don't keep anybody from joining a shed.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's quite a question, isn't it? Women in men's sheds. But you know, generally, you know, the view is we have mixed sheds, some which are men only, some which are mixed. And I think Simon said in chat to us, I know up in Colwyn Bay, they call it the She's Shed. It's the same premises. They just run on a different afternoon or a different day, Si?
Sure.
Yeah, it's just a different day. They have their own constitution, and they take a separate day. But what they have is a shared evening where if some of the women want to learn how to use some of the equipment that the guys have been using, they have a shared evening on a Thursday, which is actually probably as popular, if not more. But yeah, they have their own group, they have their own projects, and it works really, really well.
Yeah. Cool. I saw a question pop up. I'm going to ask the invisible administrator in the background. There was a question about support organisations. Question for all. Do you see national partnerships with organisations like Rotary Lions as helpful to the growing number of sheds? Do you have other target organisations you think would help? So I think that was like Phil was, I think in America you called it sponsorship. Chris and me.
Can I just jump? I noticed that come up, and I was going to say, actually, thanks for that question, John. I've worked with the Rotary Club because each Rotary has a local branch, and I've worked with a couple of those, and they've been extremely helpful in getting a couple of sheds off the ground. So certainly, I would be very interested in developing that as a sort of national partnership, but they've all got local branches. And other partnerships, I mean, I see it's absolutely fundamental, really, to securing the sustainability of our sheds. And I would particularly, I spend a lot of time talking to housing associations, housing departments, local authorities. We've got a nice partnership down in Wales with the National Museums, actually, where they provided a space. So absolutely, yes, working with larger organisations, I think, is key. And the Health Board. We've got a couple of hospital groups that are embedded in hospital sites and maintaining planters and making use of some of the space. So, a great idea, definitely.
Yeah.
Can I just?
Oh, and Simon.
Me, you go first.
Thank you. For us, of course, we have the municipality as somebody we work together with, but we also have a good benefit of working together with unions. Unions when men in the last phase of the job period, they are being introduced to Menshed as what do you want to do after you stop working, or they help us with introducing Menshed when they have men who is being ill during the work time or is in between jobs to go out and have this network. So yeah, the unions for us is a very good co-worker.
Yeah,
Simon?
I was just going to say the key thing for me, and when I work with my groups, is you've got to work from your local community. You know, a lot of people are very, very keen to get sort of national or larger support, but you build on your community. That's where you get your materials. That's where you get your support. And obviously, with every, whether it's a county or a municipality, as me was saying, you use your local links, and it's amazing what guys can come up with when they actually focus first on their own threshold, on their own hearth, and those are the ones that are really successful, where they look to what they can do from within their own communities, because essentially it is that community that's going to benefit from having the men's shed there.
Great. Okay, so we've got 3 minutes left, and I've got the administrators telling me exactly what to do and what to say. First of all, I want to thank everyone. Thank you all for joining in today. I'm also going to say there's an opportunity for us to carry on the conversation in Zoom room. I think the banner's just come up on the screen. I'm certainly going to pop into there with Simon and Chris. Hopefully me, Trevor and Phil, you can join us at least for a little bit. And I think other guests can. I've certainly got a lot more questions to ask. As far as ShedFest is concerned, I believe there's going to be a break for an hour, and on the stream they are going to play, and I'm going to quote these words, a medley of films from partners and men's sheds. Sounds interesting. But we'll be in the Zoom room. Let's have a think. So, some final words. I think, you know, someone said earlier, there's a lot more in common between sheds around the world than there is difference. You know, I think this is fantastic. It's absolutely, Trevor, I think you said, shedding is about sharing knowledge, experiences, and you know, I'm holding out our experiences to you, me, and Phil particularly, who are newer to this. You know, come and pick our brains. Let's keep talking. And Trevor, you've been at this quite a long time.
Yeah. I'm happy to travel.
Yeah,
I'm very happy to travel to Denmark and see our son.
Yeah,
Robert,
coming up.
Yeah,
Simon, we need a tour.
We need to talk. We need to find some money for traveling.
Yeah.
I was going to say, one of the things we've all talked about how difficult the last year and more have been, but one of the great positives that's come out is this form of communication. I've met with more international shedders in the last couple of months than I could have imagined this time a year and a half, 2 years ago. So that's great. Right. Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think we're on time. See you all in Zoom.
In Zoom.
Thank
okay.
You.
Let's go.
Right.
I bought a shed, I took it home, and I erected it. I bought a shed, I took it home, I'd selected it. I bought a shed, I bought a shed, I bought a shed. I followed the instructions, studied all the plans, worked day and night to get it right with blisters on my hands. And when I put the roof on and finished off the floor, I knew inside my heart of hearts I'd be ignorant no more. I heard a no inside my shed, I suspected it. I felt a no inside my shed, I detected it. I was so scared of what he said that I rejected it. He said, forget about the tarot, the I Ching and the runes. Get down your garden centre on a Sunday afternoon. Go past the cafeteria, blast all the flower beds. If you're searching for enlightenment, get straight for the sheds. And so we lived inside our shed, and we respected it. I taught him, and he taught me, and we perfected it. And all because I bought a shed.